Open Twitch. Look at the web address. The .tv at the end is Tuvalu's country code, and Tuvalu's deal for those two letters can bring in about $10 million a year. Now look at Google. G.co is Colombia. Telegram uses T.me. That is Montenegro. Bitly uses bit.ly. That is Libya. And thousands of tech companies use .io, a domain tied to the Chagos archipelago. The internet is covered in country codes wearing brand costumes. So the real question is simple. When a famous website uses a country's two letters, who gets paid? Start with the cleanest receipt. Tuvalu is a Pacific island nation with a country code that happens to say TV. That turned a small national identifier into perfect internet real estate for video. The biggest symbol is twitch.tv. Every time viewers see that address, they are looking at Tuvalu's internet letters. Tuvalu can collect without running Twitch. It leases the right to sell that ending. The GoDaddy deal was expected to generate about $10 million per year for Tuvalu. For a country with a small population and a climate-threatened future, that is serious money from a two-letter address. But .tv is the old version of this story. The new version is .ai. .ai belongs to Anguilla. For years, it was just a normal country code domain for a small Caribbean territory. Then, artificial intelligence became the hottest word in tech. Suddenly, the letters AI were no longer just a country code. They were a billboard. A startup could buy a name that looked like it was born for the AI boom. That is when Anguilla's domain business exploded. The IMF says .ai registrations rose from about 144,000 in 2022 to about 354,000 in 2023. Domain fees brought in about $32 million in 2023. That was just over 1/5 of the government's revenue. Public tracker reports later put .ai above 1 million domains. That is the moment this stops feeling like trivia. A tiny checkout box on a registrar website can become hospitals, roads, salaries, reserves, and budget breathing room. Renewals keep money moving after the first sale. The IMF says .ai domains are registered for 2 years and roughly 90% renew after that period. There are also expired name auctions. So one of the country's best digital assets is a namespace. The island owns the ending people want to type. Now widen the map. Colombia has .co. At first glance, that looks like a near miss of .com. That near miss became the product. Company founders, link shorteners, and global brands could use CO as company, corporation, or a shorter address. Google uses G.co. X, formerly Twitter, uses T.co for links. Amazon uses short.co names such as A.co. This is where the story gets bigger than tiny islands. Colombia's .co has millions of domains. Team Internet said 3.3 million .co domains were migrated in 2025. And the money connects to public infrastructure. The OECD says .co revenues are part of Colombia's FUTIC fund and accounted for 6% of that fund's revenues in 2024. Finance Colombia reported that a new contract gave Colombia 81% of administration profits, compared with an earlier model of around 6 to 7%. That single detail matters. The same two letters can be a bad deal or a good deal depending on the contract. Country code money comes from negotiation. Who operates the registry? Who sets the price? Who gets the renewal money? Who keeps the upside when the world suddenly wants the letters? Montenegro gives the clean product version. When Montenegro became independent, it eventually got .me. And .me is almost too easy to sell. It sounds personal in English. It works for profiles, messaging, wallets, portfolios, and app shortcuts. Telegram uses T.me. Messenger uses M.me. Facebook used FB.me. WordPress uses WP.me. PayPal uses PP.me. Montenegro's government said the .me project had brought more than 20 million euros to the state by 2016. TechCrunch reported 1 million .me registrations in 2016, with more than 99% registered through foreign registrars. That is the export trick. Montenegro could earn from people abroad. It sold a tiny piece of naming space to the outside internet. .tv sells video. .ai sells the future. .co sells company energy. .me sells identity. But the moment the letters become valuable, the clean money story can turn into a fight. NUA has .nu. In Swedish, nu means now. That made .nu extremely attractive in Sweden. For a small Pacific island country, this should sound like a dream. A local code becomes valuable in a rich overseas market. But Niue's fight has been about control and compensation. Wired reported that outside interests managed the domain rather than the Niuean government. Internet Stiftelsen's own stats show .nu peaked at more than 551,000 active domains in 2017 and still had about 205,000 active domains in June 2026. Niue has argued it lost revenue from a national asset. Different reports give different claimed damages, and the claims are disputed. That makes .nu useful for the script because it answers the ugly question. What happens when your country code becomes valuable while the country lacks clear control of the cash machine? Then there is .io. Tech founders love it because I/O sounds like input-output. GitHub Pages uses github.io. Indie game developers use itch.io. Startups use it because it feels short, technical, and available. A public market snapshot put .io around 1.7 million live domains. But .io is tied to the British Indian Ocean Territory, connected to the Chagos archipelago. That territory has a painful sovereignty history, and the registry revenue path is murky rather than a clean public country windfall. This is why .io is the perfect turn in the video. The user sees a cool startup ending. The source code of the address points to territory, displacement, private operation, and country code rules. If the political status changes, the internet naming system eventually has to decide what happens to the code. .io websites are still operating. The sharper point is dependency. A popular tech identity sits on a real-world jurisdiction problem. Now make it personal again. Bitly made bit.ly famous. Musical.ly used the same ending before TikTok. .ly belongs to Libya. Short, clean, brandable. But a cute short link can still sit under local registry rules. The Atlantic reported that some .ly domains were shut down after running into Libyan rules. That is the trap with country code branding. The ending can look like decoration on the screen, while the registry treats it like jurisdiction. A company may think it bought a clever shortcut. The paperwork says it rented a name under somebody's rules. Then comes the dirty side of cheap domains. Tokelau's.tk and other Freenom-operated country codes became famous for free or ultra-cheap registrations. Free sounds good until scammers hear the same price. Krebs reported that Meta sued Freenom, alleging ignored abuse and phishing reports. Netcraft later found that 12.6 million Freenom-controlled domains across .tk, .cf, and .gq stopped resolving in March 2024. That is a whole neighborhood of the internet going dark. So a country code ending can become three different things: a money machine, a legal trap, a reputation problem, and sometimes the strangest money decision is refusing to sell. Bouvet Island has .bv. Norid, the Norwegian registry, says .bv has never been opened for registrations. It also says the top-level domain stays closed with no giveaway and no sale. So the island has a country code with zero public market. That is a choice. The United Kingdom has .gb sitting in the system, but the country built its internet identity around .uk. The UK government's own digital service says .gb has zero active domains. Western Sahara has .eh listed, but IANA says no manager is assigned and the domain sits outside the root zone. That is the opposite of Tuvalu. Same basic idea, two country letters. Completely different outcome. Some letters become rent, some become disputes, some stay locked in a drawer, and some keep living after the country behind them changes. .su was created for the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union disappeared in 1991. .su kept operating for decades. Public reports still put it around 100,000 registrations. The internet can move slower than the map. Netherlands Antilles had .an. That domain was retired after the territory changed status. Portuguese Timor had .tp, then Timor-Leste moved to .tl. Those examples show the final rule. Country code domains are small, but they are tied to real political bookkeeping. When the country changes, the code eventually has to face the change. So go back to the first receipt. You type a famous address, twitch.tv, g.co, t.me, bit.ly, github.io, discord.gg. You see a brand. Behind the dot, there may be a national budget, a private registry, a disputed territory, a legal rule, a scam problem, or a dead country's leftover code. That is the real business hiding in website names. 2 letters can become rent, 2 letters can become leverage, and sometimes 2 letters are the only part of the internet where a tiny place can charge the entire world. Subscribe and tap the bell. We upload every day so you can learn about the world with great visuals.